Before we start this video, a large thank you to Chris, Noeth, and Mead for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hello guys, and today we're going to do the riposte portion of our parry and riposte system. So, let's go over to our player and our enemy. We're going to do this on both. Let's go to the combat colliders section, and I'm just going to duplicate the backstab collider that we have here. And I'm just going to duplicate this and basically pull the new one forward ahead of the player in front of the player's body. Okay, cool. Now, we're going to rename this. I'm going to rename mine Repost Collider, because this will be the collider that we check for when we're trying to riposte a player after they've been parried. I'm going to add a new layer. I'm just going to call it Repost, because we're going to handle the system very similarly to how we handled our backstab. We're going to search for this layer, so let's change that to the Repost layer with a raycast. When we hold the right bumper down, we're going to see if our player is parryable, or repostable rather, by checking this layer. So let's actually open up this backstab collider script, and we can actually use this for both the backstab and the riposte colliders. So let's rename this to something that's more adaptable. Let's call it critical damage collider. And then we can rename this point right here, the backstabber standing point. We can just name this something like, let's call it critical damage standpoint. Or actually, it'd even be more descriptive. Critical damager stand position. So whoever's damaging you has to stand here. We're going to find the references. I just want to see what this is called. Okay, yeah, just right in here where we handle our backstab. Okay, so there's many ways we can go about this, but we're going to handle it very close to how we handle our backstabs. Let's go to the character manager real quick. And right below here, let's make another public critical damage collider, and we'll call that Repost Collider. And this box collider up here doesn't even need to be here. I'm not sure why I even included it in a video before, so we're going to get rid of that momentarily. I think it's because I was going to handle it a different way. But anyway, I digress. It's not important. That's all you need to know. So back in here on the scene view, let's go down here, and we're going to have to drag back in our backstabber standing point variable because we renamed it, so it will erase from the inspector. Let's duplicate this backstabber standing point, and I'm going to call it, let's just call it riposte, or riposter standing point. So the person who's riposting you will be standing here. Put that in that variable. Excellent. So far you can see it's pretty much identical to the backstab system. We have a standing position that we lock our player into when they're riposting them. And we have a collider that we use to detect to see if the player can be riposted. Okay, so let's go and do the exact same thing here now on the enemy, because we want it on the enemy and the player. So just quickly going through this again, I'm just going to duplicate the backstab collider. I'm going to fast forward this bit so you guys don't have to watch me do this all again. Okay, now on the player attacker script, let's go down here where we have attempt, backstab, or riposte. So as you can see here, we have this raycast that scans for our backstab layer, and if we find that layer, then we do some logic. Well, we're going to start off the riposte the exact same way. So you can essentially just copy this whole top part of the if statement here now. And then right below this, we're going to add an else if. So we're looking for either a backstab or a riposte, so else if. And then I'm just going to correct the way this is laid out. Now the only difference I want to change here is I'm going to change that to 0.7 instead of 0.5 for how close we need to be. And I'm going to change backstab layer to riposte layer. Okay, we need to go up here now. We actually need to make a riposte layer. So since it's the layer immediately after the backstab layer, I'm just going to create a layer mask, call it Repost Layer, and I'm going to say it equals 1 less than 13, which means the 13th layer. Then on the bottom here, let's start actually throwing in some logic. So first, let's put our pseudocode for check for team ID in the future when we add team identifications. Then we can say player manager.transform.position equals, and we need to call our enemy character manager variable here. So we can go up here actually and copy this. It's the same. Much of this logic will be the same, but I'm going to go through it again anyway as a refresher. So we can say player manager.transform.position equals enemy character manager. Then we can say dot riposte collider dot critical damager standing position dot position. So all that means is we're going to place the person who's riposting right on that transform of where he's supposed to stand when riposting through posted player. Then we're going to say vector3 rotation direction equals player manager dot transform dot root dot Euler angles. Rotation direction equals hit dot transform dot position minus player manager dot transform dot position. You guys should know all this right now. This is just the same as we did before, time and time again. We're just rotating our player towards the enemy. Rotation direction dot y equals 0. Rotation direction dot normalize, not normalized, rather, sorry. And then down here we're going to say quaternion tr for target rotation is equal to quaternion dot look rotation towards our rotation direction. Again, identical to what is up top, really. You could copy and paste this. I'm just going through it again as a quick refresher, but I will copy and paste the last bit of it here. So in short, we're just rotating our character towards the enemy after locking him in the appropriate position where he will be then able to riposte the enemy. So let's actually grab our damage collider again. So I'm going to copy that damage collider variable because we're going to want to inflict some damage as well, much like with our backstab. So then we can copy this pending critical damage and critical damage code and place that right below there as well. And the last thing to do is to actually force our player and our enemy into the proper animations. So just like above, we're going to say animation handler dot play target animation ripost. True, this is for the player. We will be riposting them. And the enemy will say enemy character manager dot get component in children animator manager. Then we'll say dot play target animation, and we'll say riposted because they are the character getting riposted. And we'll set that to true because we are interacting and we cannot get out of this animation. We are logged in. Okay, that looks good. All right, so back up here, we're going to say if enemy character manager does not equal null and. Ooh, what's the and? Well, we need to make a check. We have to make sure our character is able to be riposted first. So after you get parried, you're then open up for a riposte. So we're going to make a check here on the character manager. We're going to call this, we're going to make a header first. I'm going to call this combat flags. Let's make a public bool, and we'll call it can be riposted. So when this is true, we want to be able to then riposte a player. Otherwise, we can't do this. So we're going to say if the enemy manager is not equal null and the enemy manager dot can be riposted is equal to true, then apply this logic. Otherwise, we don't do anything. We're going to turn that bool true in a future video when we throw an attack and the enemy throws a parry and then we are parried. That will enable a riposte. Okay, I'm going to drag in some animations I have here. So again, this is from the Souls Essentials package on the Unity Asset Store, but I've chopped them up a little bit. They're a bit different than how you receive them when you get the package. So I have ripost stab, ripost death, ripost stabbed, and ripost stabbed get up. And I'll describe that. So ripost stab is just the player who's doing the riposte. And we also have parry, obviously, which is the player who's throwing the parry. So it's when you attempt to parry with your shield. So we'll start off with that one. So let me rearrange these animations here so they're a bit more neater. We're going to put the backstab up here because it's going to flow the exact same way our backstab flows. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's make a transition to our parry animation right back to the empty state. So this is just when you're throwing a parry. We're going to use this in the next video. But as you can see here, we're attempting a parry. There's the shield throw. Okay, cool. We got that down pat. Now, let's put in the parried animation. This is when you've attacked somebody and they've parried you. So you got that animation where you're stunned and you open up almost like your attack's been deflected, like so. So after this happens, you're able to be riposted. And then we have our riposte animations. So these are the actual damage steps. So let's just drag all these in here one by one. I'm actually going to rename these two. So we have the riposte stab, which I will rename to just riposte. So this is the actual offensive animation. You're doing the attack. So that can make a transition back to the empty. And we have riposte stabbed. This is you getting riposted. And this will make a transition to either riposte get back up or riposte death, basically, depending on if you're dead or not. Much like the backstab. Once you've been backstabbed, you either get back up or you play the death animation. So then we have riposte get up. So I'm just going to call this riposted _ get up. And then we have the riposte where you die. So let's make a transition to the riposte get up. And then we're going to add a condition. Is dead has to be false. So you actually play the get up animation if you're not dead. Let's add the death animation. Oops, looks like I already have it there. Yes, I do. Getting ahead of myself. Then we'll make a transition to this one from riposted, and we're going to make the is dead is true. Okay, and then from the get up, we're going to make a transition back to the empty, because if you're not dead, you're able to go back and do your normal animations. But from the death animation, we make no transition. So it works identically to how the backstab works, as you can see to the left of us there. It just checks to see if we're dead. Okay, so next on the awake method, let's get rid of this backstab collider on the enemy manager, because we're actually going to just drag this in, as we now have two of these critical damage collider scripts. We don't want it to actually pick up the wrong one. So I'm going to drag in the backstab collider on the backstab collider, and then the riposte collider on the riposte collider. And you guys see that backstab box collider variable? We're actually going to erase that, because as I previously stated, I'm not sure what that was for. I think I was going to handle backstabbing a bit differently, but just go ahead and erase that. I'm sure it did serve a point, but I clearly went a different path and forgot to erase it. All right, let's save this now. And now we have to go to our combat colliders and make sure we drag those in on our enemy as well, on our player. So drag the backstab collider and the riposte collider in on both. Now on the animation for riposte stabbed, let's go to and let's place our take critical damage animation event on there somewhere, so we actually take the damage while we're being riposted, much like our backstab. So now you're going to see a box here called can be riposted, okay, on our enemy. Tick that to true. And now if we walk over in front of our enemy with this box ticked true, and we hold the right bumper button, you will see, boom, we riposte them. Look at that. Perfect. So in the next video, we're actually going to make it so when the enemy throws an attack, there will be a point where if we parry it and the timer lines up, we will cause them to go into a parried animation, which will then turn that can be riposted bool to true, and then we can do the riposte. After a certain amount of time, the bool will set back to false, of course. You have to do it all in the proper timing. But this is our parry and riposte system half completed. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like, leave a comment below. Genuinely helps my series get around. And if you're feeling super generous, check out my Patreon below. I will see you guys in the next one, where we will finish our parry system.